In today's Leeds news, HSV Bornauw, Paixao speculation mounts, Leeds look at Deossa, Ampadu long throw to be a bigger weapon, and Fonseca gives Sulc clarity. Wednesday the 5th of August here at the Leeds View, which are Leeds United news. We do these Monday to Friday as well as a transfer wrap-up at the weekend, 2 podcasts a week. Generally, at the moment it's a bit quiet to be doing anything. We're taking a little bit of a break, but we'll have some streams out if and when Leeds finally do something this week, which it feels like that might be closer than we feel on the cards right now. Also, today's the last day for nominations for the Football Content Awards. If you want to nominate us for that, you can do so. QR code on screen there if you want to scan it, or link down below. There's a couple of transfer stories just to get out of the way that are not part of the bigger news stuff, and we'll kind of box them off nice and early. Shay Charles, not good news for those of us who want to see Shay Charles in a Leeds United shirt. Fulham have a £26 million bid accepted by Southampton. Advanced negotiations are underway there. It's slightly more than what Leeds had left on the table, a deal believed to be containing £25 million. That includes add-ons and everything else. And the structure on this one appears to be far more palatable to Southampton's taste, at least for right now. So Shay Charles looks like he is off to Fulham. Marley Wilson and Devin Brockie, 2 youth players that left Leeds United's under-21s last season, have both got a new home, and they both signed deals with Cleethorpes. Now, Brockie was on loan last season at Cleethorpes, so he returns to that club on a short-term deal. And on James Trafford, Maresca was speaking about this. He was asked about the new goalkeeper, Rulli, they're trying to sign, and James Trafford's future. And he said, Rulli is still a Marseille goalkeeper and Trafford is still a Manchester City goalkeeper. He had a bit of a wry smile on his face when he said it, but he did say, likely get sorted in the next day or so. So we're likely to see James Trafford come through the door very, very soon for Leeds. Right, there's the smaller stuff out of the way. Let's get stuck in today's bigger news and talk about Sebastiaan Bornauw. More exit rumours surrounding Sebastiaan Bornauw. More reports coming out of Germany, which has been the origin of pretty much every single exit story that relates to Sebastiaan Bornauw. The latest comes out from an outlet called T-Online, which are citing the Hamburger Abendblatt directly. And T-Online claimed that HSV Hamburg are now shifting their focus towards the centre-back as they need a replacement for the departing Luka Vušković, who's moved on from the club, and they're setting their sights on Leeds United's right-sided cover centre-back, Sebastiaan Bornauw. And the outlet describes him as a hot candidate this summer, which is a new one for me. Not monitoring, not eyeballing, not viewing, not keeping tabs on. He's a hot candidate, but they are pretty clear on this, that this is not a straightforward necessarily transfer deal, and there are mixed reports whether they can get a deal done for Sebastiaan Bornauw at all. And that comes because of potentially the structure of the deal. Hamburg are said to want to do a loan with an option to buy. In some reports, others are saying permanent. Leeds seem incredibly unlikely to want to let Sebastiaan Bornauw move away from the club on loan. His value won't have depreciated from what it was when Leeds United brought him in. If they do move him on, they'd likely look to get a profit for him. He does get used by Leeds. He is a very serviceable right-sided centre-back cover when we've needed him. He's been involved in pre-season, so it does make sense that Leeds would let him go particularly easy. And to be fair, Abendblatt are confirming that as well, saying there's interest in him, but they're not necessarily getting a move done for him right now. So similar situation than we've seen ourselves in over the course of this summer. The source is decent on this, fairly credible, but the detail within the report is fairly vague. So this could just be noise right now. Let's move on. So a few follow-up pieces and a little bit of clarity needed from yesterday after people got very excited about a very small little private jet that was landing in Leeds Bradford Airport. We're all becoming airplane enthusiasts as Leeds United fans, but there is some more detail around this, and we are going to try and cut through a lot of the noise. There's some reports saying that it couldn't have been Paixao because that plane's not available for hire. There are other people saying it was definitely Paixao. There's 2 and 2 together and getting 15. So we have done a bit of digging on this to try and look into the airplane, the airport, the locations, the tweets, historical tweets, to see if there is genuinely anything in this right now. But it is all speculation. Now, one thing that's not speculation is coming from Isaac Johnson in Leeds Live, and he has clarified that despite the rumours around Paixao and the excitement online about him, he still remains a player of interest to Leeds United, but Leeds haven't made a formal approach and there is no movement to sign him, at least right now. Now, there does appear to be a little bit more to this if you are to try and go digging into it. And we'll try and give you the clarity on this. The plane itself was believed by some to not be available to charter. That's not the case, as it turns out, and I'll give you that detail in a couple of minutes' time. But to go blow by blow for this, and to try and clarify all the bits on it, the flight yesterday, the location does check out. Marseille are training in the Utrecht region, same location as they trained in last summer, and the airport flight left from Rotterdam, The Hague Airport, which is said to be a private airport and would be somewhere you would fly someone from if you want to keep that information private. And it's roughly 60 kilometers away from their training camp in Utrecht. So about 50 miles, checks out relatively clear enough. So the plane itself, is it available to charter or not? Well, it's a 2 MAX Cessna Citation X operated by a company called Ortag, who are a Jersey-based company. And that's an important piece on this because of where that plane ended up. Now, prior to December, this flight wasn't available to charter. It was very much a private plane. But since December, Ortag have made this available to charter. So literally anybody could have chartered this plane from Rotterdam yesterday to Leeds, Bradford. On his wife, action involved in this. So she tweeted yesterday from a plane a picture of the Stad Velodrome as she flew over, and the quote on it said, "You'll always be in my heart," or "You'll be in my heart forever." And that's not necessarily exactly unfamiliar wording. A lot of French outlets have picked up on this. Foot Mercato, Le Ten Sport, and Football Club de Marseille have all picked up on it and say that the Marseille fans are in genuine panic that they're about to lose Igor Paixao, potentially to Leeds United, although stopping short from actually naming Leeds United. Now, the detail on this might connect some of the dots, it might not, but again, we're speculating, so here we go. Paixao did almost the exact same thing this time last year. When he left Feyenoord, he put out a message that said, "You will always be in my heart." Pretty much exact wording of what his wife put out in her Instagram post. However, as I say, this is all speculation, at least right now. Leeds Live believe a move for Igor Paixao is unlikely and that there is no advanced interest in him, no formal offers, and no French outlet is reporting that Leeds United have made a direct approach. There's all links between Leeds United and Aston Villa, and as we pointed out yesterday, Aston Villa have signed Garnacho, who is pretty much exactly in the exact same position as Paixao, which means it's unlikely that Aston Villa are actually making a move for Paixao. So what does actually check out in this situation? Well, the training camp checks out, the airport checks out, the airplane checks out. His wife's Instagram post possibly checks out on wording. What doesn't check out are any direct reports of a move for Leeds United for him. And that could be deliberate by Leeds United. We know Leeds have wanted to do their business this summer. Leeds could be deliberately trying to keep it quiet and speaking with his agency and with the club of saying, look, this doesn't get done unless this is kept absolutely silent. So maybe there is something in that. But maybe there's not. Maybe there's nothing more to this. Maybe we are just looking at clouds in the sky and trying to see images. And right now, this is as clear as mud. But that is all the detail. That is the clarity we found on the detail that's out there. Consider yourself updated. We will move on. So a new name that's popped up and a bit of digging into this one as well, and a brand new midfielder being linked with a move to Leeds United. Real Betis' Nelson Deossa is being reported by Pepe Elise of Mundo Betis, who is a credible journalist that Leeds United, Ipswich, and West Ham and Wolverhampton Wanderers all have varying different levels of interest in Deossa. The clubs are believed, the Leeds part of this, are believed to be sending scouts to Dublin today to watch Real Betis in their game against Arsenal at the Aviva Stadium, where Deossa is likely to be the target of their eyes. Inside Football say there is genuine English interest in the central midfielder after his move to Vasco da Gama collapsed in a very Real Betis type of way. There was believed to be a loan with an option to buy agreed, and then all of a sudden there was English interest and that move was scrapped. Now that's the information I can find. It could be far different than that if you want to go doing a bit more digging. So the player himself, and on him, he's 26 years of age. Last season was his first season in European football with Betis. He moved there from Monterrey for £8.5 million last summer. He's described as being a very versatile, high-energy midfielder. He made 33 appearances in all competitions. Didn't score any goals last year, but has got a record before moving to Europe of scoring goals. And again, first season in a brand new type of league can take a bit of time to adapt. Manuel Pellegrini isn't exactly kicking him out the door at Real Betis. He is involved in their training camp right now, and he's being used and not exactly in a rush for him to go, at least right now. That's the manager side of things. The club could be very different. He can do the defensive midfield role. He can also do the box-to-box stuff. So he does fit the profile of what Leeds have been looking for a more versatile central midfielder. And from the profile of him, he might give Leeds also something that they're looking for. He is described as a mobile, physical, forward-driven midfielder who can play anywhere across the midfield. He's 6'1" in height. He is a Colombian, but he's not capped by Colombia just yet. But he has been called up by the Colombian national team several times, and he was involved in the pre-World Cup camp as well. Didn't make the cut in the end. His physicality, his raw power, as it's being labelled, are being flagged in nearly every single report I can read on him. The detail I've looked on him, the profile I've looked into him on it. He's not described as being a deep line playmaker, so not a player who will start moves with long range passes, but he is labelled as being a very strong ball carrier who can push through midfield into forward areas. And again, that 6'1" frame and the physicality that he brings takes an awful lot of that. So he would add a bit more diversity to that Leeds United midfield if it's something they're looking for. He's over the 6 foot in height, 26 years of age, so not quite in his peak years just yet. Is still adapting to European football, but it is an interesting one. If Leeds were in with those clubs, you would imagine Leeds could get that one done. And he's labelled to be available for under £10 million. So could be a relatively affordable one as well. Now, again, it is all speculation right now. It is coming from Betis Mundo in Spain. So until we start seeing it get picked up by anybody else in the UK, it very much fits in the rumour mill territory, pinch of salt, for at least right now. But an interesting profile of player, if nothing else. Let's move on. An interesting tactical piece or tactical story from Kyle Newbold in the Yorkshire Evening Post this morning, centering all around Ethan Ampadu's long throw and the bigger impact that could have for Leeds United into the new season. If Brenden Aaronson is the source of this story, he's been speaking about it and seems genuinely wowed by what Ethan Ampadu has brought back to pre-season training this season. And he's talked an awful bit about how Ampadu's throw and physicality have taken a big step forward again this season. We've also seen a slight modification to the Leeds United long throw with that flick on at the near post, which could be a big asset for Leeds United. But speaking on this, Brenden Aaronson said the following. Ethan came back and started throwing it about 20 yards further and 20 yards harder. I don't know. It's incredible. He's got an unbelievable throw. The Newbold's piece also adds some extra evidence to this rather than just opinion. Last season, we saw Dominic Calvert-Lewin score 2 goals against Crystal Palace, pretty much identical goals on the back of a long throw. And we saw him score 2 against Liverpool in a similar way. Now, there was a slight difference to this. There was a flick on from Joe Rodon and Sebastiaan Bornauw at the front post, which, again, fits in perfectly with Dominic Calvert-Lewin's box intelligence. The fact that he can get himself free, he can attack a ball, he finds himself in these lovely pockets of space with his movement off the ball. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. But Ethan Ampadu is also rumoured to have been working on his physical attributes to try and help with the long throw as well, his own little routine. But again, as I say, the flick on that near post is one to keep an eye on into the new season. Let's move on and talk about Pavel Sulc. So yesterday we had all the detail and story and rumour around Pavel Sulc because he wasn't involved in Olympic Lyonnais squad for their Champions League qualifier against Slavia Prague. That kicked the French media into action because they have been saying for weeks now that this knee injury that he apparently has is a smokescreen and that he will move, and if he's not involved in this Champions League squad, then he's likely to be leaving Lyon this summer. Manager Paulo Fonseca has finally sat down and talked about this after yesterday's game, and he's poured a little bit of cold water on it, but not a huge amount at the exact same time. On some of it, he's given a bit of clarity and said this. Pavel is currently injured. He has inflammation in his knee. He came back to us quite late after the World Cup and wasn't in his best physical shape. He himself really wanted to play in Prague, but unfortunately, that's not possible. Now, again, as I say, the French media have jumped on this and they've said the knee injury is a smokescreen. They've been reporting for over a week now that this is designed to cover up for a move away from the club, and Leeds United keep being the club mentioned with a move for him. The original origin of this story comes from Sebastian Dennis in France, who is generally fairly reliable when it comes to breaking stories from the region. But on the potential of a move away from Lyon, Fonseca didn't rule it out. He said this. There are options out there. We really value him here. He had an excellent season last year, and I can't say right now whether he'll leave or not. Pavel's value is high, and every club in Europe will be keeping a close eye on him. So as I say, he's not exactly ruling it out, but he's not saying there's a move right now. He's saying his absence from the squads right now are due to physical conditioning, come back from the World Cup, and inflammation to his knee. That may or may not be true. And again, because of the way Leeds behave in a transfer window, you just don't know at all what's going on behind the scenes and what Leeds are asking these clubs to do if they are genuinely interested in these players, which we won't know until they rock up in Leeds. We'll probably get a story about an hour before he rocks in saying deal agreed. But we'll have to wait and see. As I said yesterday, and I'm going to say it again, it is incredibly quiet around Leeds United when it comes to transfers. And Leeds need to get their skates on. Leeds are looking to bring in 5 additional players after or including James Trafford. Looking at left back cover, backup goalkeeper, a striker, a 10, maybe a midfielder as well. So tick-tock on the clock for Leeds United. But we'll have to wait and see. But there you go, folks. Anything major happens, I'll be back tonight. Also, it is the final day for the nominations for the Football Content Awards. Detail on that is down below, or you can click the QR code on screen. And we will have some news around our audio platform making a move this summer. Not that it will impact anybody in any way, but it will give us a little bit more exposure this season. So we'll give you some detail on that in the next 5 or so days. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.